Hello everyone, cancer, or the cell cycle gone wrong. So, some goals from this lesson, because cancer is such a vast topic, let's try and focus on getting through these goals. So, being able to describe 2 or 3 differences between regulated cell growth, so normal cell growth, and a cancerous cell growth. Being able to differentiate between terms like malignant and benign, be able to describe what metastasis is, or to metastasize. You should be able to describe the role that gene mutation has on these cancerous cells. And finally, what is angiogenesis and its importance to cancerous tumors? So those are a few things that you should take out of this lesson. So if you're in my class and currently watching, what I want you to do is pause the video, go check out this video. The link, the lesson is always on the hub, so go watch the video and just, what do you notice? What are some similarities and differences you notice between the normal cell division and the cancerous cell division? So let's say you pause the video. Some things you would have noticed we're going to be talking about today. But basically, the cell division happened very rapidly, and it also sort of was uncontrolled. There was cells dividing on top of cells, dividing on top of cells, and it was just very erratic. So usually, after cell division, cells will enter that cell cycle arrest, or G0 phase, and they will hang out there. Unfortunately, some cells, instead of leaving the cell cycle to die or go into cell cycle arrest, they'll divide repeatedly and excessively, and this repeated division forms a clump of cells, which you may know as a tumor. So a tumor basically is just defining a mass of cells. It doesn't sort of describe whether this tumor is bad or good, it's just a mass of cells. When we say cancer, cancer is simply a term used to describe a wide variety of diseases involving tumors which disrupt bodily functions. So cancer is uncontrolled cell division, the spread of abnormal cells which disrupt bodily function. So basically, cancer has a negative effect in some manner, whereas a tumor does not necessarily have a negative effect. So as I was saying, not all tumors are bad or are necessarily bad tumors. Here's how we differentiate them. The word benign means harmless. So benign tumors are non-cancerous and they're not likely to spread. So they're relatively harmless. This is compared to malignant tumors. So malignant tumors are harmful tumors that have some sort of negative consequence on the body and also have the potential to spread to other parts of the body. When a tumor spreads, we say that it has metastasized, or it is. So a metastatic tumor is one that has broken off from the original tumor and spread to some other area of the body. Usually it spreads via the lymph system or the circulatory system. So I've mentioned that cancer is uncontrolled cell division. So instead of apoptosis, we're getting cells that divide uncontrollably. And the sort of driving factor of this uncontrolled division is mutations occurring in the DNA, in specific genes, which cause the cells to do this cell division. And so what you see in this picture is a normal cell division. So we have one parent cell dividing into 2 daughter cells, which then further divide, blah, 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 blah. If we get an injured cell or an old cell or whatever, usually they'll commit cell suicide. sometimes when we have an injured cell, let's say it has also mutated, it will continue to divide uncontrollably, and we get this buildup of a tumor. So it's even a little bit more complicated than a single mutation, because the reality is we actually need a series of mutations to occur, more often than not, I should say. I'm generalizing it a lot, in order to acquire this uncontrolled growth. We'll get back to mutations in a sec, but let's just examine the differences between a normal cell and a cancerous cell. So on the left here we have a normal cell. They look fairly comparable to what you would have seen under the microscope. There's a large cytoplasm, there's one nucleus, they're sort of round. I don't know, they look fairly predictable. Cancer cells, well, they're a little bit off. It's like, okay, this reference is gonna hit only a very few number of people, but for those Steven Universe fans, it's like a corrupted gem. So they're still a living creature, but they're a little bit wonky. So in some examples might be that they have a relatively small cytoplasm. There can be multiple nuclei. They can be very large nucleoli within those nuclei, and the chromatin appears to be more sort of coarse. Here's another slide that breaks it down a little bit further. So we've already talked about how there's a large number of cells. Well, the nuclei is strangely shaped. We've mentioned that there's less cytoplasm. The cells themselves vary more frequently. So when we have our normal cells, they're fairly predictable in how they'll look. Cancer cells are a little bit more erratic. If we're looking at specialized cells, which we haven't really gotten into yet, but there's often a loss of any specialized functions of the cell, and they're no longer arranged in any particular matter because of this uncontrolled cell division. There's just nowhere for them to go, so they're very disorganized. And at times, you can also have a poorly defined tumor boundary. This doesn't always happen, but it can. So as you can see, if this is our normal epidermis, so this is our sort of skin layer here, one of these cells will mutate and become a tumor. And so that's with uncontrollable division. And you'll see as time goes on, these cells sort of just layer and build and create this very messy tumor, I guess. Notice that the cells are all visually different, and the nucleuses are doing different things, and they're not our normal cells. They look a little bit off. Now, what can happen is our cancerous cells can enter the bloodstream. And this is not ideal, let's say, to put it mildly, because what can result is that these cancer cells will then travel around the body until finally finding a new place to grow and continue dividing uncontrollably, which means you now have a cancerous tumor in another part of your body. So that's what it means to metastasize, or that's what a metastatic tumor is. So like I said, cancer involves a number of mutations in the cell. And it's not just random mutations, it's specific mutations. It's mutations in genes that control the cell cycle. So we talk about a series of different genes. So there's tumor suppressor genes, and so there's a number of genes involved in this process, and we also have proto-oncogenes. So tumor suppressor genes collectively tell a cell when to die, slow cell division, and repair any mistakes in DNA. If you're watching from my class, pause the video and open up this video. It is a TED Ed video regarding the cancer gene we all have. So that's the tumor suppressor gene, and we also have proto-oncogenes. Proto-oncogenes also help control the cell cycle, but they stimulate cell division and halt cell death. So both of these genes, it's not one singular gene in either case, it's sort of a number of genes, but they both help to regulate cell cycle. Now, what I want you to think about is specifically, what do you think will happen if these genes are mutated? Consider their functions, and so we talked about their functions over here in yellow. What do you think will happen if these genes are mutated? Pause the video, give it a think, maybe write your answer down, and when you're ready, press play. So you very well likely may already know the answer. As we've said, when these genes are mutated, it results in uncontrollable division. Cells that no longer die, and instead they divide rapidly. So like this slide says, basically when either the tumor suppressor genes or the oncogenes are mutated, it results in uncontrollable cell division. And when we get that uncontrollable cell division, we get that mass of cancerous cells building up and up, just like in those other pictures that you saw. Now, we talked about characteristics of life in that cells need to acquire nutrients and remove waste. Cancer cells are no different. The difference is that because they grow so rapidly, they don't always have supply to blood vessels. So what they do is called angiogenesis. Angio comes from the Greek word meaning vessel. So we're talking about blood vessels in this case, and genesis means to create. So what these cancerous tumors do is they will create, genesis, blood vessels. And so these blood vessels will run through the tumors, allowing the tumors to acquire nutrients and oxygen that they need to live, which is just the same as any other cells. If you're watching from my class, pause the video and go watch this link. It's a quick video just showing exactly how these cancerous tumors acquire these blood vessels. So that's my lesson on cancer. Basically, it is a number of mutations occurring in the cells causing uncontrollable cell division. This uncontrollable cell division causes a tumor. These tumors can be classified as either benign, which is harmless, or malignant, which is cancerous. From there, malignant tumors can either metastasize, so that's where they break off, enter the bloodstream, and find another place to live. And they'll also perform angiogenesis, which is the sort of growth of or redirection of blood vessels in order to supply the tumors with, or the cancerous tumors anyhow, with nutrients and a place to remove waste. Hope you found the lesson interesting. Bye now.